And here we are. I'm going live a bit early here for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is I don't trust the interface right now with YouTube. I trust YouTube, but there's been issues in the last 24 hours with the timing and how things are described with time. So I posted some videos to be put up today at 9 o'clock and noon, and the one at 9 o'clock didn't go. And for some odd reason, I went and looked, and it says, oh, you want to go at 10 o'clock, right? And I said no, and I went in and I said, I'd like it to go at, and I tried to back it up, and no matter what I did, it didn't work. So I am convinced that if I'd set this to go for 1 o'clock Eastern time, I wouldn't have gone live till 2 or 3. But again, that could just be me. So, hey, the first few people here, it's like a game of sardines. We're the winners. Jeff Schindler checks in and says, hi, Steve. And Dylan says, you're early like the time, LOL. And that is true. So that's me. But hey, since you guys, there's so few of us here right now, feel free to fire away. Space Raptor, I'm here. Isabel, hello, everyone. Shirley Dutchy, hugs, Steve. Thank you. I appreciate that. And for those of you who are curious, you'll notice a few minor additions to the background, including a nice couple of viewers from Michigan, a small town in Michigan over near Michigan International Speedway, sent me the Jeff Gordon NASCAR racer. So that's the number 24 over there in front of the fun meter. So there you go. Crash Override, you're interrupting your video with Leonard French. Is that up right now? See, I didn't know that. I thought it was going up later on. Chevy Mustang is walleye fishing on the Saginaw River. Whereabouts on the Saginaw River are you? And let me know if the walleyes, the muskies are biting. Eric Hammer, good morning. I hope Michigan is having warm weather like Iowa. Yeah, we're in the 50s right now. So things aren't bad. Things aren't bad for early Michigan. Donald Goldsmith checking in from Grand Blanc, Michigan, the big white. I know Grand Blanc well, having worked in Flint as long as I did. Shirley Dutchy says, Steve, we might be related. I'd be more interested in hearing about that if you have some genealogical issues. Chevy Mustang from Bay City. Hey, head on over to the Saginaw River. I hear the walleye are biting. So, Cop with Cuffs just started the phone video when YouTube said Steve's live. Maybe I should do that, start competing with myself. Commander Shepard's checking in from Cincinnati. Thank you. I appreciate that. And like I said to the first few people who did check in, let's try this without the glasses for a few minutes, see if that works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. My eyes aren't that bad. I had some issues with the time and how when I scheduled videos, they were not popping up the correct time. And I'm sure it has to do with Facebook and the daylight savings time issues. So I decided instead just to go live. And normally when I put up the notice at 1:45 saying I'm going to go live at 1, people start entering the room early. So I thought, well, we'll do that. Paul Ryder missed last week, was stuck at the Autorama. Did see one Superbird though. Yeah, I haven't been to the Autorama in a couple of years, but they've always got some nice cars down there. Andrew S. Morning all from Canberra. And I could be mispronouncing that. I'm really bad with town names, especially the ones in Australia. Somebody mentions the $100 bill. Oh, yeah. The $100 bill is actually quite obvious this morning, so I'm not going to pretend that you can't see it. But you will notice that it is in a Lato's Law mug, a coffee mug I broke down. And so now if you really, really wanted to, you can get yourself a Lato's Law t-shirt or a Lato's Law mug. But, and in fact, I should tell you this, because I'm selling those through a third-party vendor that handles everything for me, I'm supposed to get some money from them, but it's not a lot. And I suspect it's going to be like $100 every couple months. So I feel like I really, because I was so hesitant to make t-shirts and mugs, that I should just give that money away. So somewhere down the road, when I hit the first $100 threshold of stuff I've sold, I'm going to come onto a live show and ask people to throw out suggestions as to who I could give the money to. Not people. I'm looking for causes, humane societies or something like that. Like I said, it's not going to be a lot of money. It's going to be like $100. So there you go. Ed Libertor checking from Bridgeport, Ohio. I'm not sure where that is. I'm not as good on Ohio as I'm on Michigan. Google user says, I asked you last week your thoughts on Art Van's bankruptcy. I just became aware of it this past week, and one of the oddities. If you're not from Michigan, you wouldn't know this, but in the Midwest, there's a company called Art Van. And Art Van was a guy originally, I believe it was Arthur Van Elsner or something, but it might not have been Art. But anyways, the guy shortened his name to Art Van and sold furniture. And Art Van became a huge institution in Michigan and then some other Midwestern states. And it was family owned. And then when he got older, he decided to sell it. And so he sold the company off and some big investment firm bought it. And shortly thereafter, it went bankrupt. And their excuse for bankrupting it is they have too much debt. And the debt seems to have occurred after they bought it and before they bankrupted it. And so I have not studied it closely enough, but I'm starting to think it might parallel some of the other famous ones like Toys R Us or even Sears, where somebody bought it, saddled it with debt, and then decided to ride it into the ground. So I'll do more research on that. That's just my initial reaction. So there you go. Stephen Van Rokel, do you have a mug with a shot glass? No, I haven't done mug shots yet, or shot glasses yet. Con Clark, a lawyer rehabilitation fund. No. Lawyers who go bad can't be rehabilitated. It's like when a dog gets the taste of blood, you can't get them to go back to be vegetarians. Vince Rencher, hello from New Jersey. Hey, thanks for checking in, my friend. I like when people check in from around the country. I like to know where everyone is. Ronnie, hey, well, time changed. Thank God. I thought I slept really late. Don't worry. It'll happen to you backwards in the fall. I actually like daylight savings time. MH08, you're not late. We're early. I started a few minutes early because I was worried about the time change, and I'll stop explaining that now. But I like daylight savings time. I know people who don't like it. There's been a recent backlash against it, but I don't mind the darkness and the weird hours in the wintertime, but I like it being late when it's still sunny out. Or sunny when it's late. Take your pick. In the summertime, I like that. So Betty Anderson, dream a road trip partner. You mean like somebody like living or dead or somebody like that? I'm not sure. There's a few people I could think of. Hunter S. Thompson. Although I'd be scared to let him drive. Isabel, did you taste our wonderful maple syrup? And I'm glad you asked me that. I've got several things of maple syrup here, including the can, which I keep telling you that JP sent me, as well as the bottle of Old Mission Peninsula maple syrup back there. And this week, when I was shopping at the supermarket, Meijer, I went down the frozen waffle aisle and I got a box of frozen like waffle sticks. And I'm going to, one of these days, bring a toaster and put it right here. I'll make sure it's on camera. I'm going to toast the waffle sticks, and then I'm going to taste test the four. I think I got four different kinds of maple syrup. I'm going to do it blind. So I'm going to put them in different containers, and then I'm going to pick what I think is the best, and I'll comment, of course, on which one's got more of an aroma versus this. I'll do it like it's a wine tasting. Since I know so little about wine tasting, that'll work too. Pete, detective, good afternoon from England. Are you watching the detectives, Pete? I hope so. Try fingers. I woke up as usual and found myself an hour behind in the day. Yeah, it happens all year round somehow. Today you have an excuse, that's all. And we're at 200 in the room, by the way. And since it's before my usual start time, maybe this will give me a running start at one of those high numbers. Paul Ryder says, I used to play 9 holes of golf in the morning in Detroit metro area as a kid. Yeah, there's also a golf course in Detroit right there. I think it's owned by the city of Detroit at Woodward and like 6 Mile or 7 Mile. But I've never played it. But I've driven by it many times. When I taught downtown, I used to drive up now Woodward just to take the scenic road in and just hoped I had no car trouble in Highland Park. John Michael Karma, Redford, Michigan. I like your presentation. Thanks for your great perspective. Thank you, sir. I've got a brother in Redford and a couple other very dear friends of mine. Missy and Kevin live in Redford. So I like that area a lot. Aurelian. Hello, Steve. Hello, Aurelian. Space Raptor asks if I went by the new Michigan Tesla service center at the old Jeep dealer. I have not, But somebody pointed out to me, and I may have been Space Raptor, that somebody got the old Jeep dealer, which I think is the one that was on Dixie Highway just next to 75. It used to be a Jeep dealer, and turned that into a Tesla service center. So I hope to drive by there one of these days and see what it looks like. David Swan, wonderful village of Milford. I love Milford. Milford's a great place. I drove through Milford about a week ago. Milford's not far from Highland. I've mentioned before, the Highland House is one of my favorite restaurants on earth. Hill or Stream calls out the Mount Bohemia sign. And this was sent to me by a viewer. And of course, it is a mythical run, the Leto's Law run on Mount Bohemia. Mount Bohemia is a ski destination in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in the Copper Country, Cuna County, not far from Lac La Belle and Bay de Gris. And it's hop, skip, and a jump, as we say, from Copper Harbor. Love that part of the world. It's one of my favorite spots on earth, that whole Cuna Peninsula. John Robinson's writing us some poetry. Roses are red, violets are purple, sugar is sweet, and so is maple syrup. Thomas Dougal, what happens to old credit card that you didn't pay? You mean old credit card debts? They will get sold off, and debt collectors will chase you. And depending what state you're in, they can chase you for anywhere from up to 6 to 10 years for it. If they think you're not going to pay, if it's worth the money, they might sue you and try to get a judgment against you, and then they'll try to chase you for the judgment. If it's not enough money to file a lawsuit over, they simply might just hound you for it. And there's a bunch of things that you can and cannot do regarding chasing a debt like that. But I don't do much debt collection work, but I know guys who do. And if you're being hounded by a debt collector, if you think it's getting out of control, and it often is, feel free to contact a lawyer. There are lawyers who specialize in debt defense. And I know people say, Steve, if you owe the money, why not just pay it? Well, two things. Number one is you might not owe the money. Many people don't know if they actually owe all the money. And number two, there's often things you can do to negotiate it down. So if they have a $7,000 credit card debt that's 5 years old, they might take pennies on the dollar. And why not do that if you can? So Mrs. Old Car, my second favorite lawyer. Is your first favorite lawyer Lionel Hutz or Perry Mason? JP Boileau, jump the gun. Yeah, JP, you're a regular. I have to tell you this. I was having issues with the time on YouTube, and it kept showing me the wrong time, and I was worried if I set it to go live at 1, it would go live at 2 or go live at noon. So I simply logged on at 1:45 my time, which it was, and hit live. Let's go. And there were already people in the room, so somehow that works out. Mrs. Oldcar. Mrs. Oldcar. Second to Saul Goodman. There you go. As long as I'm your first favorite real lawyer versus imaginary lawyer. Although Lionel Hutz, again, like I said, goes to the top of the list. And by the way, someone did send me the Lionel Hutz action figure this past week, and I have not broken him out of the box, even though I understand if you squeeze him, he says things. Such as I've argued in front of every judge in the state, often as a lawyer. But I do often break these things out of their packages, although I didn't break the Hot Wheel out either. But the Lionel Hutz thing came with a bunch of extra stuff, so I decided to keep it in the box for now. So there you go. Benjamin Castillo, hello from Bakersfield, California. And hello to you, sir. Appreciate checking in. Mike Geertz, good morning, Steve. Good morning, Mike. Warm here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Boats are already going in. Gettysburg, I've never been there. I'm embarrassed to admit that. As a Civil War student, I've studied it, read books on it. Never been there. I really need to get there. So I appreciate you checking in. Teresa Haddad. Hugo, dude, my son has got a loan out, and the company is calling me, his dad, about it. Are they accusing you of owing the money, or are they just using you to try to get to him? That's the question. Because obviously, if they're chasing the wrong person, that's one thing. If they're simply just trying to hound him, that's another. And by the way, Raf Maddox says it's Man U 1, Man City 0. The only day I cheer for Man U. You know, I should have worn my Man U shirt. I actually saw an ad on the cable showing that this morning was the big matchup between Man City and Man U. and I don't follow it so closely as to know those things in advance unless I see them on TV. I'm glad there's a game. I'm missing it, but what can I tell you? Crash Override just found a Confederate $5 bill in my grandmother's Bible. Huh? If it's real, it might be worth some money. Might not be worth $5, but depends on the condition. There's collectors out there who have that stuff. One of the things is that I'm more fascinated by Confederate coinage, because they actually did make some coins, and those are extremely uncommon. Because as you can imagine, they made a lot of counterfeit and fake and replica paper money after the war. But the Confederate coinage is very, very unusual. So I've never seen any Confederate money in real life that I know of. So Jerry C. Hey, Steve, hope you're well this Sunday, checking in from Muncie, Indiana. Thanks for checking in there as well. Let's see here. Many greetings from Berlin, Germany. Matthias F. Lou. I'm assuming it's Matthias, not Matthias, as we'd say in American. But again, I thank you for checking in from Germany. I could guess what time it is over there. I'm guessing it's 7 or 8 o'clock at night, at least. So, Two Broke Tim, I'll give you a quarter if you tell me where Jimmy Hoffa is. And I'm holding out for at least $1. Oh, Matthew Sostrom, I haven't gone through all of your videos, but you ever talked about the man who legally placed under citizen's arrest a district attorney? I saw the news on that. I did not study the story and have not done a video about it. One of the most interesting legal issues in America is the fact that most states allow you, in theory, to perform a citizen's arrest on somebody if you, for instance, see them commit a felony. Okay, if you actually witness someone committing a felony, in some states, you can perform a citizen's arrest. The problem is that there's so many things that can go wrong with it that even the police will tell you, don't do it. Do not do it. So I did a video once on just the concept of doing citizen's arrests. I talked about the different standards in a couple of different states and then ended with the caveat that you just don't do this. Just don't, So, think Hoffa's ashes were spread over Lake Superior, Jim Adams. No, I think it was probably a little bit more mundane what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. I did drive by the restaurant last week where Jimmy Hoffa's last appearance was. Jimmy Hoffa was supposed to meet with some people at a restaurant at 15 Mile Road and Telegraph on the southwest corner. It's a restaurant out in front of a shopping mall, and it's been there for decades. And so in the 1970s, when he disappeared, he was supposed to meet some people there. And witnesses said he came into the restaurant, sat down, and presumably the people he was supposed to meet never showed. And so they say he got up and he left, and he just disappeared. They never heard from him again, never saw him. And I suspect he got in a car with somebody who took him someplace, bumped him off, as they say, and then disposed of the body in some grisly fashion, which I hate to talk about too much, but that I'm sure that he had disappeared within 24 hours of that. They'll never find anything unless somebody comes forward with some kind of, confession and evidence that they can, show. Some people have claimed to know, but no one's got anything really that rock solid on it. Bernardo, Steve, hi, from Argentina. Hey, South America checking in. I appreciate that. I was not aware of listeners in South America prior to today, so I appreciate that. Yeah, several people have mentioned that I was on the show. John Michael Karmas is Macus Red Fox. Yeah, that was the name of the restaurant then. It's called something else now, but that was part of the Macus chain back then. But several people have mentioned that I am on a video with Leonard French that apparently he put up this morning. And I shot that with him, I think Thursday or Friday of last week. There's a lot of technical things that go into shooting those videos that we do because we want them to look high quality. So I shoot it at my end, he shoots it at his end, and then we drop box the videos to each other. And that's how I make mine look so good when he's on, or he makes his look so good when he's on his. So that's what we do. But I know that it took some time for him to stitch that together. So apparently that went up. So I'll go watch that in a minute as soon as this is over. So there you go. Hey, Henry Carter checking in from Brown City, Michigan. Partway up the thumb. And at Brown City, I used to drive back and forth from Detroit to Bad Axe once a week up and down M53, which is Van Dyke. I'm pretty sure there's a sign that said, Brown City that way. And so I've driven through it once or twice, but not many times. So I know all about it. Zagroseki says he put it up 23 minutes ago. Okay, well, I need to coordinate these things. I'm not competing with myself. Terry White says, hello from Florida. I would say an animal care organization. And I agree. And Terry's talking about the fact that I mentioned that I'm selling T-shirts and coffee mugs, and I'm making a very small amount of money off them. So small that I feel obligated that when the money comes in, I'm just going to give it away. So I will talk about that when the first check comes in a couple months. JP. Yeah, I'm not even sure we actually use Dropbox itself. It may have been some Google Cloud thingy. I use Dropbox the same way as Kleenex and Coke. It doesn't necessarily mean the brand name of thing. So Zagroseki. Oh, Zagrosect. Wow, you got my name right. There you go. By the way, today's Gatorade is being featured in a mug of the Winter Wonderland that is Michigan prior to today. GSD Maxima says, hey, Steve, can you explain the legal concept of attempted? Thanks in advance. Well, here's the deal. Many crimes in our society are outlawed because we don't want them to happen. So you can't kill somebody, you can't rob a bank, you can't steal a car. And the problem, of course, is if you make those things illegal, what happens when someone tries to kill somebody, tries to rob a bank, tries to steal a car, and they fail? Well, you can't say that they robbed the bank if they didn't. You can't say they killed somebody if the person didn't die. So you have to make the things attempt. You have to make the attempt illegal. And so the only question then becomes, at what level do the efforts become an attempt versus, and you can imagine where somebody might start planning something and then not execute it. And then they get arrested for an attempt. And the question is, at what point does it become an attempt? And so a lot of states will have different definitions for it. It'll often be defined as to what you're attempting to do, but it'll often say things like, taking substantial steps towards the furtherance of the crime, blah, 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 blah. And again, I couldn't even I couldn't even attempt to explain it for all 50 states because it's going to be different in every single state. But the point is that at least you understand the concept as to why it's illegal to try to do these things. Because the other problem would be if the police stepped in and stopped a crime in progress, well, then you couldn't prosecute the person doing the crime because they'd say, I didn't finish the attempt. A better one is the concept of an impossibility. So let's suppose, and this is a law school type question, let's suppose that I decided I'm going to go out and kill somebody today. I'm going to go out and shoot somebody today. And so I'm driving around looking for someone to shoot, and I see a figure in a window. And I drive by and I take a bunch of shots, and I see the bullets go through the figure in the window, and I drive off. And I'm reading the newspaper the next day, and it says that somebody had a mannequin in front of their window that got shot 6 times. Could I be arrested for attempted murder? Because I was trying to murder somebody. But the problem is that even though I succeeded in what I was doing, nobody got murdered. And so the argument in the old days, they would say, well, you were attempting to murder somebody. And so then the question becomes does the attempt have to be so good that it would accomplish the thing you were setting out to do if you succeeded? Like I said, law school question. Don't worry about it. But that's one of the things, though. Oh boy. Mrs. Old Car, a lot of Canadians here. Now, I'm glad. I in fact, for the Canadian fans in the audience, please watch tomorrow 9:00 in the morning. I've already shot the video. It's going up tomorrow morning, and I'm wearing a shirt for the Medicine Hat Tigers, which is a hockey team. And I have to laugh because Medicine Hat to me is like Bad Axe. It's one of those names that you can't forget it. And if you hear it again, you remember having heard it before. And if you ever see the really, really bad teenage romance hockey movie, Youngblood, it was starring a young Rob Lowe, he at one point in time is trying out for a team, and the coach is so disappointed that the coach starts yelling at the guys on the ice, and he goes, if you guys don't shape up, you're all getting shipped out of here. Do you want to go play hockey in Medicine Hat? And he says Medicine Hat with such disdain that I always assumed that Medicine Hat was like just some podunk town in the middle of nowhere. Turns out it's actually a pretty large town. It just has that name, so gotta love the name Medicine Hat. So again, the shirt will be the Medicine Hat Tigers hockey shirt. And it turns out they've had some great hockey players come from Medicine Hat. So that happens, So there you go. Jocelyn, hi from Wichita. Why do we hear that this new disease is very serious and the same time that it is not? Should it be one or the other? Well, it's interesting because I did a video about the latest, greatest thing, and it got demonetized because I said the word that starts with a C and has a V in the middle. And so then I did a video a couple of days later about quarantining, and I simply just avoided saying that word. And so far, it's still monetized. So I hate to bring this up, but I think I already got demonetized for saying something about attempted murder about 5 minutes ago. But the thing with any illness is that viruses grow exponentially. In fact, that's why we refer to something as going viral, okay? And viruses can grow exponentially, and it simply is a matter of what the curve is like. And the curve is affected by things like the how transmittable it is, what populations it gets into, how long the incubation periods are, and so on. And so it's possible that they can spot something soon enough and possibly tamp down some of the later things that might help it escalate. But as we've seen, apparently in both China and now, I guess, Italy, there are places where it's just, and so it has the potential to be very, very bad. But it also depends on where you live. And if you live the life of a shut-in, you might not even know this is happening, except you might go to the stores and find that the aisles have been cleared out of stuff. I will tell you that some of the hype I see is disturbing. I know that I spent some time living in an area where there might be hurricanes. And every hurricane season, the weather would go nuts about, oh my gosh, there's a hurricane coming, stock up on stuff. And I remember one time they cut to a young reporter they sent out to the local Home Depot. And she was standing in the doors of the Home Depot, and the place is a graveyard. And she goes, no one's panicking here right now, but they will be soon. And I thought, that's not how you report the news. You don't predict the future, especially when you're going to be wrong like that. You should just say, hey, check it out, people. If you need Home Depot stuff, it's wide open. Come on in. And so I'll tell you that I saw news coverage from another state, I think it was in Hawaii, where authorities had told people to stock up on food and water. Now, I don't know about you, but I live in a building where I can walk over to the wall and turn a spigot and water comes out of the wall. Now, I don't know where it comes from or how it gets there. I don't know what actually gets it. And, I don't know what powers it to come out of there. I don't know if there's elves in there. I don't know if there's a gerbil running on a wheel. I don't know if it's magic, but water comes out of the wall, okay? So the idea that I've got stockpile water when it comes out of my wall, people aren't even thinking. And so I can tell you that a couple of weeks ago, when the word first broke about this impending doom, I went to the supermarket and I saw that all of the produce and the vegetables were wiped clean, gone, which is the last thing you hoard if you're hoarding for time, okay? You can't stockpile fruit the way you can stockpile canned goods. And I wanted to step up on top of something and grab the PA and say, excuse me, you people are all hoarding wrong. But then I thought, no, that's okay. Let them get home with their 75 pounds of grapes and then ask themselves how they're going to make them worthwhile. So, Betty Anderson, the zombie apocalypse. Yeah, and of course, the thing about it is that nowadays zombies are cool. Zombies and vampires and werewolves. So, Justin Hoffman, it's the sanitizer here in Pennsylvania, people buying it and raising the price. Soap doesn't work anymore. Oh, Jacob Larson, Steve, you done a video yet on the Ford wobble of death? No, I haven't, but I've spoken to people who've got those vehicles. I'm representing one right now. And the death wobbles appeared also in Jeep. Got a client with a Jeep right now, and I've also had it appear in other vehicles, but there are vehicles on the road, and you'd think that suspensions and front ends would be, figured out and completely, solved by now. And for some odd reason, every now and then you'll see about a new vehicle that comes out where a vehicle will develop a vibration in the front end. And unless you really, really slow off the accelerator and slow down, it gets worse and causes the front end to jump around. And it's dangerous. And I don't mean jump around like the House of Pain. I mean jump around like side to side. So you don't know what the problem is. But then again, we had General Motors trucks a few years ago that had a really, really bad vibration on the back end. And they'd replace the differential. They'd replace all kinds of stuff back there. Drive shafts, U-joints, nothing would fix it. And again, differential and drive shaft technology has been around for a little over 100 years. So I don't know where that is. GSD Maximus says on Amazon, hand sanitizer went from $7 to $40 during the past 6 weeks. Yeah, one of the weird things is, I saw an article that Amazon actually went in and was knocking things off their platform where people are price gouging, so they're at least taking some steps to keep that from happening. But I suspect it will keep happening. And I know that people will go onto eBay, for instance, and say like, hey, I've got a thing of hand sanitizers for, $100, who wants it? But I think it's kind of like investing in Beanie Babies at this point. I think that I saw an article on the Daily Mail, maybe, of a woman who had her garage or some room in her house filled to the ceiling with toilet paper. And she had miscalculated, and instead of ordering rolls, she ordered cases, apparently. So she wound up with like 12 years worth of toilet paper for her family. So 5153 flashes, Jeeps are known to have a death wobble. That's the one I'm most familiar with, but I've been hearing recent stories about Ford Motor Company. Hang on once again for the Michigan Winter Wonderland Gatorade. Yeah, John Michael Karma says that the masks on eBay are going for big bucks. I'll tell you right now, most of those masks don't do anything other than make you look like, hey, they're wearing a mask. And I know that the Japanese made those masks fashionable years ago. You'd see, entire cities of people walking around wearing those masks. And now you see people walking through airports wearing them. And the problem is that the masks probably don't do anything. But hey, if it makes you feel better, I guess it's doing something, right? Jerry G-Man, hey, Steve, checking in from Cincinnati, Ohio. Can you pronounce a city? Wapakoneta? That's my guess. So if that's not, it's probably like Johnson, but let me know the pronouncer. I am 6 under W, but they don't have a replacement in stock for 3 months now. That could apply to almost anything on Amazon or an auto dealership. Oh, boy. John Robinson, alcohol-based sanitizers don't work very well against corona. Chlorine-based and Lysol work much better. Yeah, I think that basically the key here is to try to avoid situations, if you can, where you're around a lot of strangers or touching things that strangers have touched. Go to the supermarket, wash your hands, when you get back. Yeah, Zafar Syed says also smog in Asian countries. I wonder how much those masks work with smog. Burke Uper says, hey, the masks say, hey, look at me. I'm a paranoid fool. David Zeronansky says, try visiting your bank wearing one of those masks. See how far you get. By the way, don't forget, there are cities and I believe some areas where it's against the law to wear a mask in public. So don't get me wrong. I understand if you're walking or wearing that mask, they're not going to, but yeah, walk into a bank or try wearing one in your driver's license photo and see how that works out for you. So there you go. John Robinson, and stop touching your mouth, nose, and face. And stop touching other people's mouths, noses, and faces. That's what'll really get you. So one of the weird things is, I'm sure you've heard this, but the virus appears to affect older people very, very harshly and younger people almost not at all. Meaning that they've had very few instances of children being affected by it. And yet we all know that children do somehow come into contact with dirt and germs. Not sure how that works. Again, it's like the water out of the wall. I don't know where it comes from. But children, somehow, it must be their immune systems or something. There's something funny about this one because, like I said, not a lot of kids, mainly older people. So it's every time it comes, every new disease that comes out, I understand has got some new twists and turns to it. Jason Johnson, kids are the carriers, stay away. Wise words. And George Lisi says if the virus can enter through the eyes and nose, we need full head helmets. Yeah, we need to be wearing those full, like a racing helmet almost, including the ones that the guys wear that it actually has a thing on it, Oh, boy. Hey, I got to tell you, and I'm going to mention this right now. A very good friend of mine named Karen Dion is a Michigan writer, and she wrote a book called The Wicked Sister. And I'm mentioning this because it's coming out in August. But I may have mentioned this previously, that she wrote a book a couple of years ago called The Marsh King's Daughter. And this right here is not what the cover looks like, because there's the cover. I got what they call an advanced reader copy. And the reason is that, like I said, I know her. And she signed this to me somewhere very, very nicely. There you go. She signed it to me. And I'm actually mentioned in the book because the book is set in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And when she was writing it, I was talking to her one day and we were just discussing some technical aspects of things that popped up in the story. And then she thanked me very kindly in the acknowledgments at the back. So her new book, The Wicked Sister, is not out yet, but I have an advanced review copy again. And she sent this to me, and I read it. It's really, really good. It's also set in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I'm going to mention this again because if you read the acknowledgments in the back, it does say, as well as my writer friend, Steve Leto, who generously shares his knowledge of both the Upper Peninsula and Michigan law. So I'm mentioned on page 284 of the acknowledgments. But the book's coming out in August, so I'm just mentioning it because it was sitting right here. And I like to mention latest things on my desk. But I'm an avid reader. And it's a novel, it's a thriller, and it's set in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. What more could you want? So there you go. Ninok Frampini, love the Upper Peninsula. Thank you very much. Baby Packrat, 284 is the best page to be mentioned, of course. Although, I will tell you, I think the acknowledgments in the first one were earlier in the book, but J. Paul, when do you have time to read? In my spare time, I squeeze it in. I don't read as much as I'd like to. I admit that. I do not get as much reading done as I'd like to, but I do read, and I actually got that book from Karen about a week ago. And I sat down and plowed through it in, I think, 2 days. And I'll admit, part of it is that she sets the story near Marquette, Michigan. And she mentions things, because the story is taking place contemporaneously, like now, part of it is. And so she mentions things like, landmarks and so on. And I've been there. So it's just, I know it's silly, but it's another connection that makes the story more immediate for you. So, Paul Ryder, scuba mask, regulator, and tank. Yeah, that's one way you get there. The question, of course, is you got to make sure all that stuff is clean, and you also got to make sure that the people who are filling your tank are clean as well. Mindbend, you read more than you think with all the court papers and whatnot. Actually, it's true. And I also write more than I imagine because I tend to think of my writing as the books I've written like 10, 12 books, but I write so much stuff on a daily basis, legal pleadings and letters and emails and memos and documents, that I actually do write more now than I did 20 years ago. And so it's just not all that goes into the books I write. Wade Pittenger, reading the full Warren Report is heroic. I've read the Warren Report itself, but the tricky part is, it's 26 volumes of exhibits. It's reading those that is really, really heroic. And I can tell you that when I went to law school, I was walking through the law library one day, just, I don't know, bored. And I found the 26 volumes of the Warren Commission exhibits. And I'd never seen them before. And most people, if they've seen it, have only seen the book, the commission report. But the commission report routinely references things that are in the exhibits. 26 volumes. And I remember I spent like a month, just every day I get bored, I go down at lunch, yank one out and start flipping through it and go, check it out. Because I knew that the odds of me getting that full set any day in the future was going to be slim. So I had to enjoy it while I could. KS, you're so busy. How many hours per week do you put into YouTube creation? You know, I've said this before and no one believes me, but it's true. The videos I shoot in real time have very few edits in them, meaning a 20-minute video takes about 20 minutes to shoot. Editing takes another 20 minutes, half hour, and it's uploaded. So I spend a couple hours a day shooting, editing, and uploading videos, just a couple hours. And so, you know, it probably cuts into my TV time. But I do practice law. I shoot the videos, and then I write and I read in my spare time. Betty Anderson says, what's the oldest coin you've ever found? And where did you find it? And the oldest coin I found is an 1806 large penny. And I found it in Milford, Michigan. Somebody mentioned Milford earlier. So I found that. And then the oldest silver coin I found was 1837 half dime. Same story. Found that in Milford as well. So very unusual to find coins that old. Michigan only became a state in 1837. So to find anything that predates that is very, very unusual. John Gendron. Hey, Steve from Shelby, Michigan. How you doing? Glad you checked in. Shelby's over on the east side. I've been over there not too long ago. I was in court for somebody. MH08, Moops. Moops, of course, is a famous typographical error from the back of the Trivial Pursuit game that George was playing with the Bubble Boy. And the Bubble Boy guessed that the correct answer was the Moors. And George held him to the typographical error of the Moops. And, of course, that was a play on the fact that Trivial Pursuit famously shipped some sets of answers with the games where they printed the backsides wrong. So they'd have questions and the answers are supposed to be here. The answers would be over here. And then take the questions from this one, the answers. And so they'd be either completely wrong or in that case, it's a typographical error. So, you know, it's a lot of typesetting. And as you can imagine, those kinds of things can happen. So, of course, the Moops. What a guy. Hey, I'm from Milford. Well, if you are, you'll recall it about 15 years ago now, maybe 16 or 17, Milford tore up their sidewalks and replaced all their sidewalks downtown for about a month. And I went up and down those sidewalks with a metal detector after they tore them out and was just digging in the dirt. And I'm not making this up. Walking along with a metal detector in my hands, looked down and saw Indian head pennies laying on the surface of the ground, meaning that they put the cement down. When they pulled the cement up, Indian head penny was laying right there. And Indian head pennies went into circulation in the 1860s, went out of circulation in 1909. So very, very old and laying on the ground all that time. Bob Bong, what's up with Jeff Gordon's number 24? That was sent to me by husband and wife who live over near the Michigan International Speedway. And they're big Jeff Gordon fans. And they actually sent me a note and said, hey, Steve, are you interested in Jeff Gordon's car? And I said, I'm interested in any NASCAR. If it will fit on a shelf of mine, I will squeeze it in. Duncan Campbell checked in. Hi from Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for checking in, my friend. I appreciate that. Got a lot of friends in Australia. And by the way, I do a show once a month with Chris Goodsell. He's got a show called Road Ramblings, and I call in with the American Car Report once a month. And I'm convinced he does it because he just thinks that I have a funny accent. But I talk about the American automobile industry in Australia, and we always have fun with that. Is that a Norwegian flag on your left? No, my friends, that is a Finnish flag. I assume you're pointing at that. That's the Finnish flag because, of course, I have an affinity for all things Finland. And I keep forgetting this is here. But I do have the little glowing Finnish flag zipper pull. And again, things sent to me by my Finnish audience. But Leito, my last name is Finnish, so people spot that. Zagrasek, you're going to need a bigger shelf. I am. David M. got a 1927 penny from McDonald's a couple weeks ago. Happy day. Wheat leaf pennies are less common in circulation. Used to get them all the time when I was a kid. Get them occasionally now, but not very often. But what's cool is if you get a silver dime or a silver quarter, because they're actually worth, I think, 9 or 10 times face value. I got a silver quarter in my change about a year ago. And I immediately spotted it because the silver has a slightly different shine to it. If you dig enough of them with a metal detector, you know that you can almost smell the silver. And I remember I got a person handed me the change, and I looked immediately. Oh, silver quarter, cool. So I saved it. But I'm always looking through my change. So there you go. Matt Carruthers, hey Steve from Portland, Oregon. And again, if I say Oregon, people say you're saying it wrong. If I say Oregon, they say I'm saying it wrong. And if I say Oregon, they say I'm saying it wrong. So apparently there's either no way to pronounce it correctly or many ways to pronounce it correctly. Rita Hanla Matla just checked in, although she's laughing at me. And she's laughing at me because I believe Rita was the one who sent me this and a couple other items behind me. I'm not sure if I see them, but I know they're back there somewhere. So, Rita, thank you very much. Rita also occasionally sends me beautiful photographs from around where she lives in Finland. I've never been to Finland. My parents have been there many times. And I'd like to go, but I don't speak the language. DP Wa, what is that dial and gauge about? If you're referring to this is the fun meter, okay? It is exactly what you think it is. If it goes to 10, will it explode? Well, that's the question, because, if you redline something for too long, bad things can happen. I don't know if you can redline the fun meter, though. I don't know. That's one of those things. Maybe someday we'll find out. Who knows? Mike Garrett's, I've got an old $5 bill with the blue Federal Reserve stamp. And you'll also remember that they made gold certificates and silver certificates. And those are the old bills that in the old days, if you wanted to, you could take it into a bank and redeem it for gold or silver in that value amount, in theory. When we went off the gold standard, of course, all that went out the window. And the silver certificates, I don't know when they stopped functioning that way, but you'd notice them because the seal over there's two green seals on it would be different colors. And they were often yellow, gold colored, or red, or sometimes blue, depending on what denomination they were and so on. So, I always liked those old bills, but in fact, I'm glad they brought back the $2 bill. $2 bills are in circulation. They have been for a while, although there's some great stories about people being arrested for trying to use them. But ZKR99, do those vintage mics work? And would you consider doing shows using them? Some of them do, some of them do not. But the problem with them is they've all got really, really weird plugs. I've discussed this with people before, and I don't know how many people would ever notice this, but two of them are the same. That microphone is the exact same as that microphone, just different angles. One's up, one's down. But the microphones have really, really weird plugs on them. And the RE20 in front of me has got what's called an XLR plug, which is a very common standardized plug nowadays. But back then, each company had its own plugs, and I don't think any of those are XLR. I don't have cables for any of them. And so I actually looked at it briefly, and it's just one of those things where it would be too much work. And I suspect all that happens, people go, we can't hear you. So Ray Leps, does the amp go to 11? Of course it does. Oh, boy. Beaker, I have a $20 gold certificate, took it to a coin shop. Dealer said it's worth exactly $20. Yeah, and I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite topics. You've always got to be careful with guys at coin dealers because they often, they buy low, they sell high. And so they'll often hope you don't know what something is. And they'll say, oh, it's not worth anything. It's not worth much. And so I've had people tell me that they took something into a coin dealer that they knew was worth a lot of money and said, how much you give me for this? And the dealer didn't know that they knew. So offers them like nothing. And a friend of mine brought in a very, very rare large penny that was worth $300 or $400. And he goes, how much for this? And the guy goes, $10. My friend goes, well, any large penny in this condition is worth $10, but this is an unusual mintage. And the guy goes, nope, they're all $10. They're all $10. And my friend said, well, let me pull out a coin book. Let me show you. And the guy goes, no, it doesn't matter. They're all worth the same. So my friend took it to an eBay place and sold it on eBay for $300, And so the guy was just hoping that my friend would say, oh, okay, here you go, $10. And the guy put $300 on it and sell it, or try to sell it. So be very, very careful about that. Junasku says something to me in Finnish, greetings from Estonia. And I recognize the root of the first word as being, I believe, started the root like for welcome. But anyways, I really need to learn to speak Finnish, but it's a complicated language. Burke Uper, the old adage is that an ounce of silver will buy you a good dinner and an ounce of gold will buy you a good suit. Although nowadays an ounce of gold will buy you a decent car. A beater to get you around. J-Pulse is when when my time comes, God rest my soul, they will open this room and put it in an episode of The Hoarders. I'm thinking that what they should actually do is they should actually preserve the set and put it in the Smithsonian, much like Archie Bunker's chair. Robe Raboon says, Steve should get into magnet fishing. I've never known anybody who did magnet fishing, but I've seen guys who do it on like the news and stuff, finding all kinds of cool stuff. It sounds like a fascinating idea. I'd rather watch someone else do it. So if anybody out there is into magnet fishing in the Michigan or Ohio area, shoot me a note. I'd love to come out and magnet fish with you someday. Mike Bennett, what's your opinion of the old saying, a lawyer who represents himself has a fool for a client? Absolutely true. I've represented myself a couple times on traffic tickets, and that's the only thing I'll do it on. And the problem with a lawyer, and I've represented lawyers before, is that lawyers think too much about the legal aspect of something to where they're blinded to the factual things surrounding it. And so I've represented lawyers before on like lemon law cases, and I explained to them how it works. And they don't know lemon law, but they're a lawyer. They know the law. They start explaining to me how the law works. I'm like, you don't understand. That's the law on these books. I spent 28 years figuring out how these books translate into real life. And every lawyer I know has horror stories about representing other lawyers who are in essence meddling with or interfering with their own cases. And the biggest problem is that if you're representing yourself, you don't know what you look like the way other people know what you look like. And we've all known people who thought that, hey, everybody likes me, and no one does. And who's going to tell them that? So, if you are a lawyer in need of legal help, hire a lawyer. Besides, it's good for the community. Keeps us working. So, JB Weld, thoughts on the word pettifogging or pettifoggery? That's one of those old school words that probably is in the OED that is I think just blustery, using a lot of highfalutin words for no reason. So every now and then you see those words pop up. Let's see. I had somebody, actually quite a few people mentioned the other day they enjoyed me looking up a word on the video. I'm going to see if pettifoggery is in here. With my luck, it's not the word I'm thinking it is. Oh, pertinacity? Hold on. Petard. Petite. Petition. I'm guessing it's 2 T's, right? Hang on. Petticoat. Petticoatery. Pettifog. Hang on. To act as a pettifogger. To plead or conduct a petty case in a minor court of law. To practice legal chicanery. Wow. To plead with legal chicanery to take by petty larceny. Pettifog. Huh. I always thought that it had more to do with using the language, but it says a legal practitioner of inferior status who gets up or conducts petty cases in an opprobrious sense, one who employs mean, sharp, cavilling practices, or a rascally attorney is a pettifogger. So it would be somebody who's making mountains out of molehills in a legal sense. So I, for one, am glad I consulted the OED on that. Don't know about the other 497 of you. Should go mudlarking. Don't make me pull that thing back out again. I will. J.B. Weld, placing an undue emphasis on trivial matters. Yeah, exactly. And again, there's a bunch of different shadings to that meaning. It looks like it arose in the legal setting, but it appears to have arisen in the legal setting where somebody, it's like, bringing in, Perry Mason to handle a traffic ticket and saying, dude, we're going to pay you by the word. So, let's see here. J.P. Boileau apparently just cut and paste the definition of pettifogger, a lawyer whose methods are petty, underhanded, or disreputable, a shyster, one given to quibbling over trifles. Yeah, so again, that's one thing you have to remember, and I freely admit this. By the way, we just hit 500 in the room, so this is 10 fingers for some weird reason. The Oxford English Dictionary first came into being a long time ago. This is the second edition, I believe, and it is. And even though it's a second edition, they've had updates and so on. But the Oxford English Dictionary traces the history of the language. So a lot of times it will have several definitions, some of which are very, very old and possibly even archaic, meaning that no one uses them anymore except for having these kinds of discussions. So I've always been fascinated by the English language. I like to see how it evolves. I like to see where the words come from, what they meant originally, how they've changed over time. Isabel, where is the link to buy the mug? I've put it up before. It's on Zazzle. Zazzle, Z-A-Z-Z-L-E. Go to Zazzle.com and look up Leto's Law. I'll put it in the description below the video, but I can't do that while we're talking because I don't have the link handy. But for instance, the term decimate, the word decimate, D-E-C-I-M-A-T-E, decimate, came from originally in Roman times. If a centurion overseeing his 100 men, if they performed badly in battle, they were ordered to decimate. And they would literally go through and draw 10 of them at random and execute them. 1/10 of them would be executed for bad performance to scare the other 90 into fighting a little harder next time. And the term decimate, as you can imagine, is a scary concept if they said, we're going to come in tomorrow to your work and kill 1 out of every 10 of you. But it literally means to reduce by 1/10. But it means to do it in a very tragic and scary fashion, right? So the word decimate, which originally meant to reduce by 1/10, came to mean to wipe something out. And I've had people argue with me about this before. And the problem is that the number one definition is to reduce by 1/10. The number two definition now in many dictionaries is to wipe out, destroy, to trash, whatever. And it's taken on a secondary meaning that is acceptable. And likewise, and I hate to admit this, the word literal. So it meant originally that the word you used was being used for that purpose and was not hyperbole. So if I say the house literally caught on fire, I better be pointing at a burning house. Okay. And if I say, hey, this party's on fire, okay, no one expects that the actual party is burning. Now, if I said, come on over, this party is literally on fire, you'd say, should I bring a fire extinguisher? But literally now means really, like a lot. So I know people out there who are going insane literally at that thought. It's what the English language does. So cynic in chief sounds like my work. Were they decimate or were the places on fire? Or both? Pete Giardini's salary came from being paid in salt. Word history is great. Yeah, that's a good one. And that's another thing that's fascinating is the fact that salt used to be such a vital part of our lives because it was hard to get, but so necessary that salt could be used as currency. And they would actually pay Roman soldiers in salt. And it's not that like, oh boy, I got my salt, I'm going to go sit down and eat it. No, you had salt, you could go trade it for something useful. That's how valuable it was. So hang on. Baby Packrat, I'm going insane, and I refuse to say that in its correct usage. Who's to say you're not? Crash Override. English is the language that butchers itself. Ronald Knight checking in from San Antonio. Thanks for checking in, my friend. You have to understand, though, that the thing that makes English so powerful is the fact that it can be used in these different ways. And if you read stuff written by good writers, good literary writers who can really, really turn the language around and stuff, you realize how powerful the language is. And there are languages out there that don't evolve. And people use languages that do what they want them to do. That is, I want to express something to you. I want to convey something to you. And English does that very well. Do people misuse the English language? Yes, they do. You know, do people say things are grammatically incorrect? All the time. But it's still an extremely robust and powerful language. And I love it. I do wish I could speak a couple other languages, but right now it's just English for me. Ad Libitor, spring marathon this year. I generally don't run more than one marathon a year. I'm going to run the marathon in October at the Free Press. I'm running a half marathon over Memorial Day weekend up in Traverse City. I did watch the Olympic trials from Atlanta. They were a week ago, and I actually watched them, a rerun of it last night. Galen Rupp won it for the men. He'll be one of three guys going to Tokyo, assuming that they have the Olympics. And there was a woman, Molly Seidel, who ran her first marathon ever and came in second place. And it's one of those stories it was made for the ABC treatment, which I'm sure we're going to see. But she is a barista in Boston, living in an apartment with her sister. She went to Notre Dame where she ran track. I think she ran cross country and maybe some other track events. And then she got out of college and just started running as a hobby, but running well. And she qualified to make the Olympic trials by running a half marathon at a really, really good speed. And they let them do that. If you can qualify for the trials by either running a marathon or a half marathon below a certain limit. And she qualified and she came in second. And I mean, it was a tough course, tough conditions. And so it'll be a very, very interesting thing. Unfortunately, the Americans don't do terribly well in the marathons in the Olympics these days. But Galen Rupp got a bronze medal in Rio. So we have hope for him. His best marathon to date, though, is 2:06. And there are guys out there who can hit 2:01 and 2:02 all day long on a good course. So 2:06 probably won't get you a gold medal unless there is a very, very difficult course with bad conditions. Crazy thing about the women's race, the Olympics trials a couple days ago, was that the woman who won the Boston Marathon a couple of years ago, 2018, I'm drawing a mental blank right now. It'll come to me in a second. She came in fourth, and only the top three get to go. And it was very, very tough conditions. But when she won the Boston, it was pouring rain. And so she's good in tough conditions, but she did not do it at the trials, unfortunately. So she came in fourth. And in the trials for the Olympics, fourth is the first loser. So, Bill Van Ram, any opinion on transgendered people in the Olympics? That's an interesting question. In the women's Olympic trials, there was a transgendered runner. She did not qualify, but she was running, and I'm not sure. It's interesting because every now and then something like that pops up. The other one was the guy who later had legal trouble, shall we say, from South Africa, who ran with those blades on his feet, and he's missing his feet, so he's handicapped. But he said, "Hey, look, I've got these blades. They let me walk. I should be allowed to run." And they let him run. And I think he's a 400 runner, the 400 meter race. And he made it through a couple rounds, but he didn't make it to the medal rounds. And the big argument was, yeah, it's one thing to not have feet, but to have actual like springs on your feet seems unfair to other runners. So they deal with these problems like this and these questions once in a while. I have no idea. One of the things that I do, I've had discussions with recently with people. I admire the Olympics. I like the Olympics. And the reason I like the Olympics is once every 4 years, all the countries stop what they're doing, go to one location, and just have a sporting event. And generally speaking, it's not political. I understand, we boycotted Moscow. Moscow boycotted Los Angeles. There have been instances of politics, incursions into the Olympics. But generally speaking, it's supposed to be apolitical. Let's just go and have some fun. And I like that idea. If we can do that once every 4 years, maybe there's hope for us. But I don't know how to explain the fact that we're going to have wall-to-wall coverage of swimming and gymnastics. And the gymnastics is going to be 14-year-old girls, and the swimming is going to be, here's the 50, here's the 100, here's the 150, here's the 200. Hey, this guy won 14 gold medals, and swimming's not interesting in the Olympics, let alone any other time of the year. But, that's just me. So, but like I said, in general, the concept of the Olympics to me, I think is a good thing. I like the idea that once every 4 years, calm down, people. Let's just get together and have some fun. Let's crank the fun meter up, okay? Matthew Sostrom, I thought it was every 2 years. No, the Olympics are every 4 years. They do have the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics, so they go like this. So it'll go summer, 2 years later, winter, 2 years later, summer. It used to be right on top of each other, but it's every 4 years, the Olympiad. Yeah. James Hook, Oscar Pistorius. I could remember Pistorius. I couldn't remember the Oscar, though. By the way, Nikki Tapavara, greetings from Finnish Lapland. That's way north. There you go. Jim Adams, how much is the metal in a modern penny worth? It's interesting because the penny itself might not be worth a penny, but it costs more than a penny to manufacture by the time you work and everything else. So the U.S. Mint loses money on pennies. I believe they also lose money on nickels. But that's one of those things. I don't think we'll ever get rid of pennies simply because I don't think any American is going to be willing to let us round numbers up and down to make change. I can see people getting in fist fights over, you owe me 3 cents. I'm not going to give you a nickel. Well, you owe me 3 cents. So, Bill Van Ram, golf doesn't belong in the Olympics. Hey, there's lesser things in the Olympics, my friends. I believe there's square dancing. Roby Rabun says the best Olympic sport is the closing ceremony. You got me on a pet peeve of mine. Do you remember London? Their opening ceremony was horrible. It was horrible. And the closing ceremonies were worse. And every single country tries to outdo every other country's ceremonies to the point of absurdity. And I don't know if you remember or not, but in Rio, the opening ceremony, at one point, like Giselle Bundchen walked across the stage because apparently she's a big deal down there. Is it Giselle Bundchen? I think it was. What she got to do with the Olympics. And then they had a thing that looked like an airplane fly by, and they go, that's in honor of this guy named Dumont or Gaumont or somebody who invented the airplane, despite the fact that the Wright brothers invented the airplane. So I'm always perplexed and interested to watch the opening ceremonies, but we'll see how that goes. I can tell you that one of the coolest things they did in the opening ceremonies was in the Seoul Olympics, I believe in 88. Was it Seoul? They did a demonstration where they had guys on the field wearing Taekwondo uniforms go through a bunch of Taekwondo stuff really, really quickly in unison. That was really, really cool. But of course, I was really into Taekwondo at the time. So to me, that was like, hey, there they are doing my thing. So I like that. Cop with Cuff says overseas they had 2-cent coins, nickels, and rounding, but never in the customer favor. Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, I've been to England and they've got a bunch of really strange denominations of coins. You know, they've got 1s and 5s and like 10s and 20s. And I went to a store once to buy something, and the guy behind the counter said, you know, that's like 3 shilling 9 or whatever. And I literally pulled a handful of stuff out and I go, is this enough? And the guy hears my accent. He's, hang on. And he picked out the correct amount of change. He goes, there you're all set. I don't know. Oh, Crypto Ace. Steve Lato, congratulations. Over 500 in the live. Yeah, we just hit 520. So there you go. John Michael Karma trained 4 years Taekwondo. Where? I've mentioned before, I've got a second degree black belt in Taekwondo. Studied Han Mu Kwan Taekwondo with Soo Young Lee here in Michigan. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know regarding British money is that although England was part, or the UK was part of the Euro community, they never adopted the Euro dollar, the Euro currency. They stuck with their own currency. So I you know, a lot of people talk about Brexit. I don't know enough about Brexit to talk about it, but I'm convinced that they never really committed in the first place because they weren't on the euro. So it's kind of like, hey, honey, let's get married, but I'm going to keep my own bank account, okay? Okay. So there you go. Old English, quarter penny, half penny, 1 penny, 3 penny, 6 penny, 12 penny coins. Yeah, that's funny because things are divisible by 6, you know? Later on, we realized it makes more sense if things are divisible by 10, although we do have a quarter, it's 25 cents, but 6 pence, none the richer. So, Hiromi says best Olympic sports are hockey and the biathlon. Yeah, hockey's good. Of course, it's a winter sport, as is biathlon. Biathlon is one of those sports that you're pretty certain was invented during the Cold War by the Eastern Bloc countries. But you get on cross-country skis and you ski a course, and every so often on the course, you stop and you shoot targets. And you get so many bullets and so many targets. And if you miss any targets, you have to do penalty laps. And of course, the more you ski, the tireder you get. So it's harder for you to shoot the targets. And it's one of those things where you're like, I kind of get it, but it's also really weird. So, and then of course they've got these really, really funky, the rifles they've got are really funky. Plus, they're designed in such a way that when they're done shooting, they basically flip it over their back and it on these straps, and it hangs on their back, and they get back on and they start skiing again. So the sport's dominated by the Nordic and the Eastern, France, Poland, Czechoslovakia, but the Finns, the Norwegians, and Swedes, they're also very big. Those guys are also very, very big in cross-country skiing. So cross-country skiing, throw a gun into the mix, they're good with that. So biathlon. So John Michael Karmer, Master Sung Ku Shim, 7 Mile Southfield, Master Shim. Oh, you know something? I think I remember hearing about him. Now, he says Master Shim was killed crossing the street years ago. But one of the reasons I often ask people who take Taekwondo is whether you take Taekwondo. Wait, is biathlons air rifles now? Has it always been air rifles? I could have sworn they were using actual bullets, but Master Saint Kushim, when you meet somebody who takes martial arts, you always want to ask them about their instructor. Because, for instance, I took Taekwondo from a Korean who came to America from Korea and learned his Taekwondo in Korea. And so I've always thought that was kind of like learning a language from a native speaker versus learning it from somebody who learned it in school. So I taught Taekwondo for a while. I can teach you Taekwondo. I cannot teach it to you as well as a guy who learned it in Korea can teach it. That's a different thing altogether. So there you go. Wade Pittenger used to be 22, I think, caliber. Yeah, and again, it wouldn't surprise me if they use air rifles, but I was under the impression they're actually using regular rifles. Hot Lava Tube, are your hands registered weapons? Yeah, no, I've actually talked about that. It's kind of funny because there's an old urban legend that if you become a black belt in karate, you've got to go to the police department and get your hands registered as deadly weapons. It started out as a joke, but someone pointed out to me that Guam, the island Guam, actually has a law, apparently, that if you are a black belt martial artist there, you're supposed to buy a license and pay $25 and get this karate license. Unclear why, other than just somebody thought it'd be a funny thing to do. But it's an urban legend, but it's one of those urban legends that started as a joke, but somehow caught on. So I never quite got it. Betty Anderson, Bruce Lee, Seattle native. Yeah, Bruce Lee was a very, very skilled practitioner, but no longer with us. Andrew S., air rifles. Huh. I'll take a look at that. So, yeah, Mike Ora, look on Google. Yeah, I will, but I'm using my computer right now for something else. Charles W., Lewis and Clark use air rifles. You know what's really funny is a lot of people don't know, air rifles go back quite a ways. And like, for instance, Napoleon had guys using air rifles in his army as well. So I'm pretty sure. So yeah, ZKR99, those air rifles cost thousands. I'm sure they do. And I guarantee their skis do too. So Mike Garrett's the PVC potato cannons are the funnest guns. Yeah, a friend of mine built one of those. Very, very, had a lot of fun with that one summer. Actually took it to Lake Superior on the shore, put it at a 45-degree angle and just boom, just to see how far it would launch the potatoes. A lot of fun. David Stokes, according to Wikipedia, Biathlon uses 22 LR. Uses normal 22. I knew I should have stuck with my instincts on that. I was convinced they were using regular guns. So, Knitting Mommy, hi. My first time catching you live, though I think I'm still late to the live stream. Well, you are. I started early today because of some time issues. So, MH08, isn't it already tomorrow in Guam? Yeah, it is. And it's also yesterday. Bill Van Ram, Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco. Yeah, I know. He spent a lot of time up and down that West Coast. I know that. Let's see what else here. Wade Pittenger, it would be fun to attend a pumpkin launch contest. I've known guys who were engineers who worked at a company that did that pumpkin chucking thing, and they'd build devices to throw them, including catapults and I forgot what the other word is for a thing where you have a swing on a catapult and you time it right, it can swing and swing and fling a pumpkin way down range, as we say. So, which answers the question, what else can you do with a pumpkin, you know? Andrew S., it's Monday here in Australia, just after 5 a.m. Hey, thanks for getting up. Appreciate that. Trebuchet, you know, I like you guys. You guys are cool. Trebuchet is what we're talking about. And there's a couple different, you know, a catapult is just the lever with the spring or something that causes the motion to happen. You can put a big weight down here and release it. You can spring it. And then they've discovered, like I said, they can hinge it, put a second arm here and put it on there. And so when it swings, it builds up the leverage in the arm, and it you know, the trebuchet does that. And there's a couple other cool things they can do. There's also the Atlatl, which I believe is spelled Atlatl. And that's where you take a stick and you put a notch in it and you put a spear on it and you take it and you fling it like that. And there's actually like guys who live in the jungles who hunt with those. And apparently a guy skilled with an Atlatl can do just as much damage as somebody else who's skilled with a bow and arrow. So there you go. Tammy Brennan, have you heard of guns that shoot salt? Yeah, rock salt. That was always the thing we used to hear about. Supposedly, the guys who wanted to get you off their property would pack their own shotgun shells, but pack them with rock salt. Never knew of anybody who actually did that, but we always used to hear that about people doing that. So, Bill Van Ram, Steve, the Chinese hospital is the name of the hospital where he was born. It is still in operation. Okay, yeah, I skipped the name. I just said I caught he was born in San Francisco. I apologize. I wasn't criticizing you there. I do occasionally in my mind edit as I'm reading, primarily for time, sometimes for content, and also to fit within the space provided. David Stokes, Hawaii and Arizona don't use DST except for parts of Arizona that are Navajo lands. Rest of us states use it. And you know what's even crazier is if you go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan at the left end, the west end of the state, there's an uneven line that goes like this to the border, and some of it's a river. And the time zone does not follow the border. So there are little slivers of Michigan that are in central, and then there's little slivers of Wisconsin, I believe, that are in eastern. It's just the dumbest thing. I have no idea why they do that. So, John Robinson says rock salt penetration is minimal, but it effing burns like heck. And he didn't say heck. I suspect it would, and I think that's the point. They're not trying to kill you. They're just trying to make you sting. Burke Uper, there are still plenty of Atlatl enthusiasts here in the U.S., including in Michigan. I've never met anybody who could use one, let alone pronounce the word. I learned the word in a linguistics class. I forgot why. I remember they were discussing I know it's the glottal stop, like bottle, glottal, at the end of a word, and Atlatl has a couple of them. So, JB Weld, Steve, what was your undergrad background? My undergraduate degree is in history, and I wore an Oakland University shirt on camera a couple days ago. And Oakland U is where I went to school for my undergraduate in history. Oakland U is in Rochester, Michigan. Oakland, the county north of Detroit, about 45 minutes. Joel Kirschman, I got into an argument with a teacher when I told her the entire state of Michigan wasn't entirely within the Eastern time zone. Yeah, you got to go pull out a map to prove it, but it's true. And it's even scarier. I've been driving up the road along that border and watched my phone switch back and forth because it was confused as to what time zone it should be in. 5153 Flash. Homer Simpson used his pistol to shut off the lights. Yeah, he got a little trigger happy one episode. He got himself a handgun. And I believe he was so trigger happy that the NRA kicked him out. Muskegon. I've built Atlatls. They're fun. I'd like to see somebody use one, though. Although I guess I could probably go onto YouTube and just search it, right? Isn't that how it works? William Campbell Shepard the Ninth says he just looked up the law. South Carolina is going to remain on daylight savings time indefinitely. Really? That's too bad. Because you know what happens now is anytime someone calls, what time is it your time? No, what time is it my time? I personally like daylight savings time, but again, that's just me. That's just me. So, and let's see what else we got going here. I'm going to wrap it up very, very shortly because I've been on for a while. So I'm going to go check out the video I did with Leonard because apparently he put that up to compete. I'm competing with myself right now. Duncan Campbell. Yeah, the NRA kicked him out before he turned off the light by shooting it. Well, yeah, of course. But you'll recall there was the meeting where Lenny stood up and he said, we need assault rifles for today's modern dangerous animals like electric eels and flying squirrels. So, yeah, no, it's going to be all kinds of fun as some places get rid of daylight savings time and some places don't. So, anyways, I'm going to end it now. It's been almost an hour and a half. But next week, I will try to put up the notice in advance once we get all the time issues straightened out. Until then, keep watching. If you didn't know this, check out Leonard French's channel today. There's an interview thing that he and I did together that apparently he put up today. Leonard French is a channel called Lawful Masses. And in a minute or two, I'll put the link below the video where you can go on Zazzle to get the t-shirts and the coffee mugs with the Lato's Law logo on them. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.